The rain fell softly against the windows of the small apartment where Emma sat alone on the floor. The room was silent except for the ticking clock on the wall and the distant sound of traffic outside. A half-empty cup of coffee rested beside her, cold for hours. She stared blankly at the faded photograph in her hand, a picture of her smiling with people who no longer existed in her life. Emma was only 22, but her heart carried the weight of someone much older. People often called her beautiful. She had long brown hair, gentle eyes, and a smile that could brighten an entire room. But nobody noticed the sadness hidden behind that smile. Nobody knew how broken she truly was. 3 years earlier, Emma had been completely different. She laughed loudly, dreamed fearlessly, and believed that life would always be kind to her. She wanted to become a writer someday. She filled notebooks with stories and poems, imagining a future filled with success and happiness. Then life slowly began taking things away from her. First, her father died unexpectedly from a heart attack. He had been the one person who always believed in her dreams. After his death, the house became colder. Her mother fell into depression, and Emma had to work part-time to support the family while studying at college. She tried to stay strong. But pain rarely comes alone. A year later, the boy she loved, Daniel, cheated on her with her closest friend. Emma still remembered the night she discovered the truth. She stood outside a cafe window, frozen in the rain, watching the two people she trusted most laughing together. Something inside her shattered that night. After that, she stopped writing. She stopped laughing. And slowly, she stopped believing in herself. At college, people saw her as the quiet girl. Nobody knew she cried herself to sleep almost every night. Nobody knew she often stood in front of the mirror wondering why she was never enough for anyone. One evening, after a long shift at the bookstore where she worked, Emma walked home through empty streets. The city lights blurred through her tears. She felt exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. She reached her apartment and collapsed onto the bed without turning on the lights. "What's the point anymore?" she whispered into the darkness. For the first time in her life, she felt completely lost. Days turned into weeks. Emma lived like a shadow of herself. She attended classes, worked at the bookstore, and returned home in silence. She avoided people because pretending to be okay was exhausting. Then one winter afternoon, something unexpected happened. An old man entered the bookstore. He looked around 70 years old, wearing a long grey coat and carrying a worn leather bag. He walked slowly through the aisles before stopping near the counter where Emma sat a day. "Do you like books?" he asked with a warm smile. Emma looked up slightly. "I guess." The old man chuckled softly. "Nobody who works in a bookstore says I guess." For the first time in weeks, Emma almost smiled. The man introduced himself as Mr. Howard. He visited the store every Thursday after that. Sometimes he bought books, sometimes he simply sat nearby and talked to Emma. Unlike others, he noticed her sadness immediately. One evening he asked gently, "Who broke your heart?" Emma looked away. "Life." Mr. Howard nodded slowly as if he understood perfectly. "You know," he said, "broken things are often the most beautiful." Emma frowned. "That makes no sense." The old man pulled a small cracked teacup from his bag. "This belonged to my wife," he explained. "She accidentally broke it years ago. I wanted to throw it away, but she repaired it with gold paint." Emma examined the cup carefully. Golden lines ran through every crack. "In Japan," Mr. Howard said softly, "there is an art called kintsugi. Instead of hiding the cracks, they make them beautiful. The broken parts become part of the story." Emma stared silently at the cup. For some reason, tears filled her eyes that night. After returning home, she opened one of her old notebooks for the first time in months. Her hands trembled as she wrote a single sentence. Maybe broken people can still become beautiful. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. Over the next few months, Emma slowly changed. Not magically. Not perfectly. Healing never happens that way. Some mornings she still woke up feeling empty. Some nights she still cried remembering everything she lost. But now, she also began noticing small beautiful things she had ignored before: the warmth of sunlight through windows, the smell of old books, strangers smiling at each other on trains. And she started writing again. At first, her words were messy and painful. She wrote about heartbreak, loneliness, fear, and grief. She poured every hidden emotion onto paper. Writing became her escape. One evening, Mr. Howard read one of her short stories. When he finished, he looked at her with proud eyes. "You have a gift," he said. Emma shook her head immediately. "No, I don't." "Yes," he replied firmly. "You just buried it beneath your pain." His words stayed in her mind for days. For the first time in years, Emma allowed herself to dream again. She began posting anonymous stories online. To her surprise, people connected deeply with her writing. Comments appeared from strangers around the world. "This story made me cry. I feel less alone now. Thank you for understanding pain." Emma realized something important. Her brokenness allowed her to understand others. Her pain gave her words honesty. The girl who once hated her scars was now helping others heal through them. Months later, Emma received an email from a small publishing company. They wanted to publish a collection of her stories. She stared at the screen in disbelief. The old Emma would have immediately doubted herself. But this time, she whispered softly, "Maybe I deserve this." The day her first book was released, Emma visited the bookstore to tell Mr. Howard the news. But he wasn't there. The manager handed her a small envelope instead. "He left this for you," she said gently. Confused, Emma opened the letter. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Emma, if you are reading this, it means you finally remembered who you are. Broken hearts often believe they are ruined forever. But pain does not destroy people, it changes them. Sometimes it changes them into something stronger, kinder, and more beautiful than before. You once told me life broke you. Maybe it did. But look at yourself now. Your cracks are filled with gold. Keep writing. The world needs people who turn pain into hope." Mr. Howard. Tears rolled down Emma's face as she folded the letter carefully. The manager smiled sadly. "He passed away last week." Emma felt her chest tighten. But strangely, this pain felt different. It wasn't empty. It was grateful. Years later, Emma became a successful author known for writing emotional stories about healing and hope. Thousands of readers connected with her words because they felt real. During interviews, people often asked her, "How did you become such a powerful writer?" Emma always smiled softly before answering. "I learned that broken people have the deepest stories." One night after a book signing event, Emma returned home and stood before the mirror. For the first time in many years, she truly looked at herself. The scars were still there. The sadness had not completely disappeared. But neither had her strength. She no longer saw a broken girl. She saw someone who survived. Someone who kept going even when life became unbearable. Someone who turned pain into art. Emma smiled gently at her reflection. And this time, the smile was real. Because she finally understood something important. Being broken did not make her weak. It made her human. And sometimes, the most beautiful souls are the ones that were once shattered into pieces and learned how to rebuild themselves with gold.